The boardroom clock read 8:15 a.m. when Marcus Wellington fired me for insubordination. By 4 p.m. that same day, I owned his company, destroyed his reputation, and watched him beg for mercy in the very chair where he'd smugly dismissed me 8 hours earlier. This is the story of how one arrogant CEO's biggest mistake became my greatest victory. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Sarah Chen, and I used to be the Chief Technology Officer at Wellington Dynamics, a mid-sized software consulting firm that specialized in financial automation systems. I say used to be, not because I was incompetent, but because I discovered something that would make Marcus Wellington very, very uncomfortable. It started 3 weeks before that fateful Tuesday morning. I was conducting a routine security audit of our client database when I noticed something peculiar in the encryption logs. Our system showed consistent data transfers happening at 3:47 a.m. every night, always lasting exactly 14 minutes, always transferring the same file size. The timestamp was suspicious enough, but what caught my attention was the destination IP address. It wasn't one of our approved servers. I traced the IP through several proxy layers until I found its true location. A server farm in the Cayman Islands, registered under a shell company called Meridian Holdings LLC. My stomach dropped when I cross-referenced Meridian's incorporation papers with our company records. The registered agent was Marcus Wellington's personal attorney, Jonathan Briggs, and the incorporation date was just 6 months after Wellington Dynamics landed our biggest client, Fortress Financial. But that was only the beginning. I spent the next 2 weeks diving deeper, using my administrative access to pull transaction logs, client communications, and system backdoors I'd installed for legitimate security purposes. What I discovered was a masterpiece of corporate espionage and data theft that would make the headlines for months. Marcus wasn't just running Wellington Dynamics. He was running a parallel operation that sold our clients' most sensitive financial data to offshore buyers. Every algorithm we developed, every proprietary trading system, every client database was being systematically copied and sold through Meridian Holdings. We weren't just a software consulting firm. We were an unwitting front for one of the most sophisticated data theft operations I'd ever seen. The scope was breathtaking. Fortress Financial alone had trusted us with trading algorithms worth over $50 million. Liberty Bank had given us access to their entire risk assessment framework. Pinnacle Investments had shared their proprietary market analysis tools. All of it was being packaged and sold to competitors, foreign governments, and anyone willing to pay Marcus's price. I documented everything. Screenshots of the data transfers, copies of the encrypted files, bank records showing payments from Meridian to numbered accounts in Switzerland and Luxembourg. I even found Marcus's personal communications with buyers, including a particularly damning email where he bragged about having, quote, the biggest collection of financial intelligence on the East Coast. The evidence was overwhelming, but I needed more than just proof of theft. I needed leverage. That's when I discovered Marcus's fatal flaw. His arrogance had made him sloppy. He'd been using Wellington Dynamics' own servers to host part of his illegal operation, which meant everything was technically company property. More importantly, he'd been using company resources to commit federal crimes, which gave me certain legal advantages I was about to exploit. I spent a weekend creating what I called the package. It contained complete documentation of Marcus's operation, financial records showing exactly how much money he'd stolen, and a detailed analysis of every law he'd broken. Wire fraud, computer fraud, violation of the Economic Espionage Act, money laundering, breach of fiduciary duty, and about a dozen other federal and state crimes. The FBI would have enough evidence to put him away for 20 years, but I wasn't planning to hand this to the FBI, not yet. Instead, I did something that would prove to be the smartest decision of my career. I created a dead man's switch. If anything happened to me, if I were fired, if I had an accident, or if I simply failed to check in every 72 hours, the package would automatically be sent to the FBI, the SEC, every major news outlet, and all of Wellington Dynamics' clients. Marcus didn't know it yet, but his entire empire was now balanced on a knife's edge, and I was holding the handle. I also did something else that Monday night. something that would prove crucial in the hours to come. I used my administrative access to transfer ownership of several critical company assets to shell companies I'd established over the weekend. The server infrastructure, the proprietary software licenses, the client contracts, even the building lease, all quietly transferred to entities I controlled. It was completely legal, surprisingly easy, and utterly invisible to anyone who wasn't looking for it. Marcus had taught me that the modern business world belonged to whoever controlled the digital infrastructure. He was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Tuesday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that usually made me optimistic about the day ahead. I dressed carefully, choosing a navy blazer and my favorite lucky earrings, the ones my grandmother had given me before she passed. I had a feeling I was going to need all the luck I could get. I arrived at Wellington Dynamics at 7:30 a.m., earlier than usual, and made my way to my office on the 4th floor. The building was mostly empty, just a few early arrivals scattered across the open workspace areas. I liked these quiet morning hours when I could think clearly and prepare for whatever the day might bring. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. At exactly 8 a.m., my desk phone rang. Marcus's assistant, Jennifer, sounded nervous when she asked me to come to the executive conference room immediately. No explanation, no agenda, just, "Mr. Wellington needs to see you right away." I gathered my laptop and a notebook, though I suspected I already knew what this meeting was about. Marcus had been increasingly hostile toward me over the past few weeks, ever since I'd started asking pointed questions about our data security protocols and client confidentiality measures. He probably thought I was getting too close to something sensitive. He had no idea how right he was. The executive conference room occupied the northeast corner of the 5th floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a commanding view of the city skyline. Marcus was already there when I arrived, seated at the head of the polished mahogany table, wearing his signature charcoal suit and that predatory smile that had probably closed 1,000 deals. "He didn't invite me to sit, Sarah," he began, his voice carrying that patronizing tone I'd grown to despise. "I've been reviewing your recent performance, and I'm concerned about some choices you've been making." I remained standing, my expression neutral. "What choices are those, Marcus?" His smile widened, but his eyes stayed cold. "You've been asking a lot of questions lately. Questions about systems and processes that aren't really your concern. Questions that suggest you might not trust the leadership of this company." "I'm the Chief Technology Officer," I replied evenly. "Technology security is literally my job description." Marcus stood up slowly, walking around the table until he was uncomfortably close. He was trying to intimidate me, a classic power play that had probably worked on dozens of employees over the years. "Your job," he said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, "is to do what I tell you to do. Nothing more, nothing less. And lately, you've been doing a lot more than I'm comfortable with." I met his gaze without flinching. "Are you saying you want me to stop doing security audits?" "I'm saying I want you to stop being a problem." His mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the cold calculation underneath. "This company has been very good to you, Sarah. Good salary, good benefits, opportunities for advancement. It would be a shame if you threw all that away, because you couldn't learn to mind your own business." The threat was clear, but what Marcus didn't realize was that he'd just confirmed everything I suspected. He wasn't just running a data theft operation. He was actively trying to silence anyone who might discover it. "I see," I said calmly. "And if I don't agree to look the other way?" Marcus returned to his chair, leaning back with the confidence of a man who believed he held all the cards. "Then I'm afraid your employment with Wellington Dynamics will be terminated. Effective immediately. For insubordination and failure to follow direct orders from senior management." The clock on the wall read 8:15 a.m. exactly. "So what's it going to be, Sarah? Are you going to be a team player, or do I need to call security?" I looked at him for a long moment, this man who had stolen millions of dollars from his own clients, who had built his fortune on betrayal and fraud, who thought he could threaten me into silence. Then I smiled. "Marcus," I said, reaching into my blazer pocket for my phone, "I think you should know that as of this morning, you don't actually own Wellington Dynamics anymore." His confident expression flickered. "What are you talking about?" I tapped my phone screen, pulling up the documents I'd prepared over the weekend. "I'm talking about the fact that every critical asset of this company, every server, every software license, every client contract, has been legally transferred to companies that I control. As of 6 a.m. this morning, you're essentially the CEO of an empty shell." The color drained from Marcus's face. "That's impossible. You don't have the authority to—" "Actually, I do." I showed him the screen, scrolling through transfer documents, incorporation papers, and legal filings. "You gave me administrative access to all company systems, remember? Full authorization to manage technical assets and client relationships. I've been very thorough." Marcus lunged for his own phone, frantically dialing what I assumed was his lawyer's number. "Jonathan? Yes, it's Marcus. I need you to—" "What do you mean the contracts have been transferred? How is that possible?" I watched him pace behind his chair, his voice rising with each question. "What do you mean legally binding? I never authorized any transfers. I don't care what the paperwork says. Reverse it." He ended the call and stared at me with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "You can't do this. I'll sue you for everything you're worth. I'll have you arrested for corporate theft." "Interesting choice of words," I replied, pulling up another screen on my phone. "Speaking of theft, how long did you think you could steal client data before someone noticed?" The room went completely silent. Marcus's face went from red to pale white in the span of about 3 seconds. "That's right, Marcus. I know about Meridian Holdings. I know about the data transfers. I know about the offshore accounts. I know about every single crime you've committed over the past 2 years." He collapsed into his chair like a puppet with cut strings. "You don't know what you're talking about. I know that you've been selling Fortress Financial's trading algorithms to their competitors. I know that you've stolen over $50 million worth of proprietary software from our clients. I know that you've violated the Economic Espionage Act, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and about a dozen other federal statutes." I walked around the table until I was standing where he had been moments before, looking down at him with the same predatory smile he'd shown me. "Here's what's going to happen, Marcus. You're going to resign as CEO of Wellington Dynamics, effective immediately. You're going to transfer all remaining company assets to me. You're going to sign a confession detailing your crimes. And then you're going to disappear quietly before I decide to hand everything I know over to the FBI." Marcus's hands were shaking now. "You can't prove any of this." I scrolled through my phone again, showing him screenshots of bank transfers, copies of encrypted files, and email communications with foreign buyers. "I have 2 years' worth of evidence, Marcus. Transaction logs, financial records, even recordings of your phone calls with buyers. The FBI would have enough evidence to convict you before lunch." "What do you want?" he whispered. "I want Wellington Dynamics. I want your confession. And I want you to understand that your biggest mistake wasn't stealing from your clients." I leaned closer, my voice dropping to match his earlier whisper. "Your biggest mistake was threatening the one person who had the skills and access to destroy you." The clock now read 8:47 a.m. In 32 minutes, Marcus Wellington had gone from confidently firing me to begging for mercy. But this was only the beginning of what would become the longest day of his life. Marcus stared at me across the conference table, his usual commanding presence reduced to that of a cornered animal. The morning sun streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows cast sharp shadows across his face, highlighting every line of stress and fear that had appeared in the span of 30 minutes. This was the same man who had terrorized employees for years, with his explosive temper and ruthless business tactics. Now he sat frozen, watching his empire crumble in real time. "You're bluffing," he said finally, though his voice lacked any conviction. "Even if you have some evidence, you can't just take over a company. There are board members, shareholders, legal processes." I pulled out my laptop and opened it slowly, deliberately, the way a surgeon might arrange their instruments before a complex operation. The screen came to life, displaying a web of documents, contracts, and digital records that represented 2 years of careful planning and 15 years of corporate experience. "Marcus, Let me educate you about something you clearly never bothered to learn, I began, my voice steady and professional. Wellington Dynamics isn't the empire you think it is. According to the corporate charter you filed 5 years ago, the company structure is built around what's called a, quote, technology asset holding model. Do you remember signing those papers? His face went blank. Of course he didn't remember. Marcus had always been the type of CEO who signed whatever his lawyers put in front of him without reading the fine print. Your attorney, Jonathan Briggs, designed it to protect you from liability if any of your consulting work went wrong. Very clever, actually. It means that whoever controls the technology assets essentially controls the company. And as of this morning, that person is me. I turned the laptop screen toward him, showing a cascade of legal documents. Every server lease, every software license, every client contract, every piece of intellectual property, all legally transferred to holding companies I established over the weekend. Liberty Tech Solutions, Pinnacle Systems Holdings, Fortress Consulting Group. I chose the names carefully, don't you think? Marcus's hands gripped the edge of the table so tightly his knuckles went white. This is impossible. I would have been notified. There are safeguards. There are, I agreed. But you gave me administrative privileges to all company systems 6 months ago, remember? When you wanted me to handle that emergency migration for the Fortress financial contract, you signed a blanket authorization giving me full access to manage all technical assets and client relationships. It's still valid. I scrolled through the documents, each one a nail in the coffin of his arrogance. I've been preparing for this moment for weeks, Marcus. Every transfer was legal, properly documented, and filed with the appropriate authorities. Your own company structure made it possible. The conference room door opened, and Jennifer, Marcus's assistant, poked her head inside. Her usual composure was cracked, replaced by barely contained panic. Mr. Wellington, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have Fortress Financial on line 1. They're saying their access codes aren't working, and they can't connect to their trading algorithms. They're demanding to speak with someone immediately. Marcus looked at me with dawning horror. What did you do? I changed the access codes, I replied calmly. All of them. Every client, every system, every piece of software we manage for them. As the new owner of those assets, I have every right to do so. Jennifer was still standing in the doorway, clearly overhearing our conversation. Should I tell them you'll call back? Tell them, I said, standing up and walking toward her, that there's been a change in management at Wellington Dynamics, and that all client relationships will now be handled through the new corporate structure. Give them this number. I handed her a business card I'd had printed over the weekend. Liberty Tech Solutions. They can reach me there. Jennifer looked confused, glancing between Marcus and me. I don't understand. Are you still with the company, or... Ms. Chen is the new CEO, Marcus said quietly, the words seeming to physically pain him. What about you, Mr. Wellington? Marcus stared at his hands. I'm taking an indefinite leave of absence. After Jennifer left, I returned to my seat across from Marcus. The power dynamic in the room had shifted completely. He was no longer the predator. He was prey, and we both knew it. Now, I continued, let's discuss your options. Option 1. You resign quietly, sign over all remaining company assets, and disappear. In exchange, I'll give you a head start before I contact the authorities about your little side business. Marcus's phone buzzed. Then again. Then it started ringing continuously. I could see the caller IDs from across the table. Fortress Financial, Liberty Bank, Pinnacle Investments, 3 other major clients. Word was spreading fast. Option 2, I said, raising my voice slightly over the persistent ringing. I send everything I have to the FBI right now. Your bank records, your communications with buyers, documentation of every piece of stolen data, evidence of money laundering through your Cayman Islands accounts. You'll be arrested before lunch. Marcus fumbled for his phone, declining call after call. The clients, they'll sue. They'll destroy both of us. No, I corrected him. They'll sue you. I'm the one who discovered the breach. I'm the one who secured their data. I'm the one who's about to save them from the biggest corporate espionage scandal in the industry's history. I opened another folder on my laptop, revealing detailed security reports I'd prepared for each client. I've documented every piece of data you stole, every algorithm you sold, every system you compromised. When I present this to Fortress Financial, they're not going to see me as part of the problem. They're going to see me as their salvation. The conference room door burst open again, this time without a knock. Jonathan Briggs, Marcus's attorney, strode in looking like he'd dressed in a hurricane. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his tie askew, and he was carrying what appeared to be every legal document Wellington Dynamics had ever filed. Marcus, what the hell is going on? I've got 3 different law firms calling me about asset transfers, client contracts being voided, and something about criminal exposure. Please tell me you didn't actually steal client data. The silence in the room was deafening. Marcus couldn't meet his attorney's eyes. Jonathan slowly turned to look at me, recognition dawning on his face. Ms. Chen, I take it you're behind the asset transfers? I am, I replied. All completely legal, all properly documented, all authorized by your client's own corporate structure. Jonathan dropped into a chair, spreading documents across the table. This is a nightmare. Marcus, the incorporation papers for Meridian Holdings, the ones I filed for you? The FBI could trace those back to you in about 5 minutes if they wanted to. They won't have to, I said quietly. I've already done the tracing for them. Both men stared at me. Jonathan's face went pale. You have evidence of the data theft? I have everything. I opened a new folder on my laptop, displaying a timeline of Marcus's crimes that stretched back 2 years. Bank transfers, communication logs, stolen files, buyer contacts, money laundering routes, tax evasion schemes. It's all documented, all verified, all admissible in court. Jonathan closed his eyes and rubbed his temples. Marcus, you didn't tell me about any of this. I thought Meridian was a legitimate investment vehicle. It was supposed to be, Marcus said weakly. It just evolved into something more profitable. Something more criminal, I corrected. Jonathan, as an officer of the court, you should know that continuing to represent Marcus at this point might constitute obstruction of justice. Jonathan stood up abruptly, gathering his documents. I need to think about this. Marcus, don't say anything else. Don't sign anything. Don't make any decisions until I figure out how deep this goes. After he left, Marcus and I sat in silence for several minutes. The phone calls had stopped, but I could see emails piling up on his computer screen. The business world moved fast, and news of Wellington Dynamics' sudden upheaval was already spreading through our industry network. How long have you known? Marcus asked finally. 3 weeks, I replied. But I've suspected something was wrong for months. You were too successful, too fast. Companies don't grow the way Wellington Dynamics grew without cutting corners. I gave you everything, he said, and for the first time I heard something approaching genuine emotion in his voice. The salary, the position, the stock options. I made you rich. You made me complicit, I shot back. Every day I worked here, every system I built, every client relationship I managed, I was unknowingly helping you commit crimes. Do you have any idea what that feels like? Marcus looked genuinely confused by the question, and I realized that this man had operated without a moral compass for so long that he couldn't understand why anyone else would have one. The money was good, he said finally. The money was stolen, I replied. Every dollar of profit this company made was built on fraud and betrayal. Our clients trusted us with their most sensitive data, and you sold it to their competitors. My laptop chimed with an incoming video call. The caller ID showed David Morrison, CEO of Fortress Financial. I had been expecting this call. Answer it, Marcus said. Tell him it was all a mistake. Tell him the systems are back online. Instead, I accepted the call. David Morrison's face appeared on the screen, looking exactly as stressed as I had expected. Sarah, thank God. What's happening over there? Our entire trading operation is down. We can't access our algorithms, our risk management systems, nothing. David, I said calmly, I need you to listen very carefully. Wellington Dynamics has been compromised. Someone has been stealing your data and selling it to third parties for the past 2 years. The color drained from David's face. What are you talking about? I have complete documentation of the breach. Your trading algorithms, your client databases, your proprietary risk assessment tools. All of it has been copied and sold through offshore shell companies. Marcus was making frantic gestures, trying to get me to stop talking, but I ignored him completely. Who? David demanded. Who has our data? I turned the laptop screen so that both David and Marcus were visible in the frame. Marcus Wellington. He's been running a data theft operation out of Wellington Dynamics for 2 years. I discovered it 3 weeks ago and have been gathering evidence ever since. David's expression shifted from shock to fury as he stared at Marcus through the screen. You son of a bitch. Do you have any idea what you've done? We trusted you with $50 million worth of proprietary systems. David, please, Marcus began. But David cut him off. Don't you dare speak to me. Sarah, what's the extent of the breach? I pulled up detailed reports I'd prepared over the weekend. Complete penetration of all systems. Every algorithm, every database, every piece of software you've developed in partnership with Wellington Dynamics has been compromised. I have evidence of sales to at least 6 different buyers, including 2 of your direct competitors. Jesus Christ. David ran his hands through his hair. The board is going to crucify me. Sarah, can you fix this? Can you secure our systems? I already have, I replied. I've changed all access codes, implemented new security protocols, and isolated all compromised systems. Your data is secure now, but the damage from the theft over the past 2 years can't be undone. What about Wellington Dynamics? Are you still with the company? I glanced at Marcus, who was slumped in his chair like a deflated balloon. As of this morning, I am Wellington Dynamics. Marcus is no longer with the company. David's eyebrows shot up. What does that mean exactly? It means that every asset, every contract, every piece of technology that serviced your account is now under my direct control. It means that the person who discovered the breach and stopped it is now the person responsible for preventing it from ever happening again. For the first time since the call began, David's expression softened slightly. Sarah, you saved us. If this had continued, if our competitors had gotten more of our data. I know, I said. That's why I had to act quickly. What do you need from us? A new contract, I replied. Clean slate, new security protocols, complete transparency. I'll provide you with a full forensic report of the breach, help you assess the damage, and implement systems to prevent anything like this from ever happening again. David nodded. Whatever you need, send me the contract terms. After ending the call, Marcus and I sat in silence again. The morning sun had shifted, casting different shadows across the room. In the space of 2 hours, his entire world had been dismantled and rebuilt around a new center of power. 5 other clients, I said quietly. They'll all want the same conversation. Marcus nodded slowly. They'll sue me for everything. Probably, I agreed. But that's a civil matter. The criminal charges will be much worse. He looked up at me with something approaching desperation. What do you want, Sarah? Really? Money? Stock options? A partnership? I closed my laptop and stood up, smoothing my blazer. I want you to understand something, Marcus. This isn't about revenge. This isn't about money or power or getting back at you for trying to fire me. I walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline where thousands of people were going about their normal Tuesday morning routines, completely unaware that a corporate empire was collapsing just floors above their heads. This is about consequences, I continued. You spent years believing that success justified any method, that money excused any crime, that power protected you from accountability. You were wrong. When I turned back to face him, Marcus was staring at his hands again. I'm going to rebuild Wellington Dynamics into something legitimate, I said. Something that actually serves our clients instead of betraying them. Something that proves business success doesn't require fraud or theft or moral compromise. And me? Marcus asked quietly. I picked up my laptop and headed toward the door. That's up to you. You can disappear quietly and hope the statute of limitations runs out before anyone decides to prosecute. Or you can try to fight this and spend the rest of your life in legal battles you can't win. I paused at the door, looking back at the man who had tried to destroy my career just 2 hours earlier. Choose wisely, Marcus. It's the first important decision you'll make in years. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.